my friend Bryan Cauwels, who was great enough to make two, not one, but two killer vlogs regarding Las Vegas Stadium. Thank you very much, sir. Much
Welcome.
appreciated. He's with Wyndham Hotels International in Las Vegas. And once again, he's going to give us what I intended to be a more regular and is going to be a more regular occurrence, but this man's reporting on Las Vegas hotel room market. Bryan, without any further ado, how you doing and what's happening?
I'm doing great. So I wanted to address one thing that maybe is a little bit off topic first before we go into the hotel room situation. So as you know, I have hotels that are in Las Vegas. I don't live in Las Vegas. I live in California, and last week I went to Vegas. I wanted to see what was going on on the ground in Las Vegas to see what the situation was, what was happening over there, because I see it in the numbers at my hotel. So I just kind of wanted to see exactly what was going on. And there was one thing that happened, and it happened to us at least 3 times, and it's not. I'm not. This is not verbatim. I'm just gonna make a very general statement about what people told us when we were there, because as you know, we're big Oakland A's fans, right? So we're wearing like our Oakland A's stuff. And the first time it happened, we were Planet Hollywood. The hotel and the casino are closed currently, but the shopping mall that's attached to it, the Miracle Mile shops at Planet Hollywood, they're open. And so the first time this happened to us was there, and it was inside of a store that I don't remember. It's not important what store it was, but it was inside of a store that was selling T-shirts. And we came in wearing our Oakland A's stuff. And the guy was like, "Oh, hey, I'm from the Bay Area. I used to live in the Bay Area. Great to see the A's in the playoff." And he goes, "And how do he goes, and are you also Raiders fans?" And so I told him, well, when they were I said, we used to be Raiders fans. We're not really so much Raiders fans anymore. And he's like, well, what NFL team do you follow? And I was like, I don't really follow the NFL too much anymore. Mostly college football. It just kind of left a bad taste in my mouth, the whole Oakland Stadium situation, right? Yeah. And he made a comment. And again, we heard the same comment at least 2 other times after this from other people. Not exactly the same, but the premise is the same. And he said, well, at least the Raiders have finally found a city that can appreciate them. And it just bothered me. I just wanted to get that off I was just like, you think that the people in Oakland didn't appreciate the Raiders? Or he was like, yeah, well, now they have a place where the fans will come and they'll really get behind them. And they have all the support of the city and the government. And I was like, okay.
That's Mark Davis. That's Mark Davis basically spoiling the news water about Oakland and Oakland just letting it happen.
And it just bothered me. But I mean, because it's just so not reality, of the situation.
It's like, and that's the thing. They had psychologically. It's like it reminds me of when the Raiders were coming back to Oakland from LA, and I was a columnist with the Montclarian at the time, having just worked for the city, and I understand what it feels like to want a deal to go through. And for example, Joe Debro, at the time, psychologically, it looked like he wanted to have the deal killed, but he was concerned that people who look like me weren't going to get work, and him as well. He's a contractor. Initially, I wasn't not mean, but I wasn't the kindest, but I was always respectful to him as a elder. But I know how that feels. However, and there's always the other. But what happens is psychologically, the environment for that is set by the team owner. And in the case of Elder Davis, rest in peace, he set one city against the other. He did it when he left, and it was Oakland Raiders versus not just Oakland but the whole NFL. Sued and basically won, then left. Didn't like. It's not so much he didn't like it, but the LA County Coliseum Commission, which has its own problems with corruption or had it at the time, didn't come through with the lottery boxes he wanted, and the pay market for cable at the time he thought was going to emerge and benefit him, pay-per-view didn't manifest itself either.
Yeah,
they weren't winning. So yeah, strike three, you're out for LA theoretically. But even then, as he was coming back, he had it set up to have a press conference in LA. Similarly, his son, rather than selling everybody, including you and I, on the idea, he chose to burn bridges.
Yeah.
And so from the Las Vegas perspective, for those people having the same mentality, right? I should point in this direction, actually, having the same mentality, okay, as we did back in 95, 94, they believe the Kool-Aid. For those who, choose to pay attention. Now, there are others who I remember encountering. I'm not sure they're going to talk as much now because the stadium is finished. It looks great. And so there's just movement that's built up around the stadium, right? But back then they were saying, well, there was no vote. And if there were a vote, they wouldn't have approved it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the only time that's going to come back, I guarantee you, is when the public starts feeling, if the federal government doesn't come through and bails them out, which it should, the fiscal weight of the problem. And I pray that never happens.
Yeah.
Because if it does, Las Vegas, as you know, has been born, and we were about to talk about, has arguably, other than Honolulu, bore the greatest brunt of the pandemic problem.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And to me, it's irresponsible for governments not to push the federal government or even sue the federal government, which is another form of pushing, to get some chunk of what I believe is the 9.8 trillion should be poured in this economy. Well, now that was in June. Now it's roughly about 5 trillion that should be poured into this economy. And it's criminal, Bryan. It's criminal how, let's another example, okay? Just to get this off my chest before we, turn that, but it is related big time. They say, okay, they've been very slow to respond. And the idea, I believe, among some is that the market will take care of things. Well, excuse me, the market is broken.
Yeah.
And if they of the mind that in the long run, everything will work. Well, John Maynard Keynes, who was the father of the kind of expenditures that gave rise to the New Deal of the 40s and the 50s, well, the 40s, excuse me, famously said, in the long run, we're all dead. We don't have the kind of time to wait. And so what we have people in the White House and government, because of the White House, that do not understand how to do or appreciate economic planning. And they don't even know how to recognize economic planning when they're asked to do it. For example, giving $16.2 billion to farmers, right? Last year, as Trump did. That was economic planning. He thought it was a constituent thing, but it was actually economic planning. So we're quite literally lost at sea by the helm, That's it's a huge problem. Intellectually, where this country has gone, like this, we ought to be collectively ashamed.
Right. Yeah.
But
anyway.
Yeah.
Sorry to take it off the rails there, but I just
no, that's just quite on the rails. We're all off the rails right
now. So first, I just want to kind of talk about the experience that I got in Las Vegas, because I go to Las Vegas. Typically, I go to Las Vegas a couple times a year for fun, for vacation, for gambling, for going to see shows or whatever. And I will say that coming from California, where things are, they were very locked down. You couldn't eat in a restaurant, things like this. Movie theaters and stuff weren't open. It was almost like going to a different planet, going to Las Vegas. It was because everything is pretty much open. Like there's very few things that are not open that were not open in Las Vegas.
Wow.
So really the only difference I would say of going this time than last time is the last times that I've been was that we couldn't see a show because the shows are all shut down still, right? Because they can't have more than 50 people or whatever that is. But pretty much everything else was open. I mean, all the restaurants were open, not all the hotels were open. The Cromwell was closed. Planet Hollywood was closed.
Bally's, right?
What was that?
It's on the corner across from Bally's, right?
Correct, right across from Caesar's Palace and on the opposite corner of Bally's. Yeah. Someone told me that the Cromwell is actually that they were not closed because of the COVID, but that they are closed because they're filming a television show there that's on CBS or Fox. And
yeah, Love Island.
Love Island is filmed at the Cromwell. Yeah, so they had it shut down for filming for the television show. It's my understanding that they're going to be reopening in the next 2 weeks. Cromwell. So, and I don't know about Planet Hollywood. Also, the Rio is closed. And I think those are the only like of the main hotels. Those are the only ones that I saw that were still not open and operating. But everything else was open. I got there on Wednesday of last week, and yeah, there's the Cromwell. I looked earlier, and I think
so you got there Wednesday last week.
I was there last week, Wednesday of last week.
Yeah.
Wednesday of last week. So, I got to Vegas on Wednesday of last week, and I came home on Monday this week. So I was there from Wednesday to Monday, and it was crazy the difference between Wednesday and Thursday and Monday, and Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It was night and day different. And when I go over some of the numbers with you, you're going to see it in the numbers. But to see it firsthand, like in person, was wild. So Wednesday and Thursday,
like that.
Yeah. So the weekends it went crazy busy. So Wednesday and Thursday, it was dead. There was nobody around. We walked from Treasure Island, where we were staying on Wednesday and Thursday. We actually changed hotels on Friday, but on Wednesday and Thursday we were staying at Treasure Island. And for people who are familiar with Las Vegas, we walked from Treasure Island over to the Cromwell, and then back to Treasure Island. So you pass the Venetian, and you pass Casino Royale on the Strip, and Harrah's, and the Link, the Flamingo, and then Cromwell, and then we came back on the other side by Caesars. When we walked, it was probably we left the hotel probably around 7 o'clock in the evening, and when we got to the Cromwell, we had maybe, like, on the sidewalk, we had maybe passed 20 other people total. Like on this, I mean, like that's dead. Like that's a long way to go, and normally you would see a lot of people out in that area, especially at that time of the day. 7 o'clock at night is pretty prime, right in the middle of the evening, dinner and stuff. And there was just nobody out there. I mean, you could literally like roll a bowling ball down the Strip and not hit a person. It was crazy how dead it was on Wednesday and Thursday. And then Friday we switched hotels. We actually moved downtown to Fremont Street. We stayed at the newer property. It's called the Downtown Grand, and
quite nice. Yeah,
it was pretty nice. Yeah, it was nice. It was very boutique-ish, kind of like a boutique hotel, smaller, in the Strip, and it was nice. And we wanted to go we wanted to go check out Fremont Street and do the Fremont Street experience. And so we went over there on Friday night, and it was so crowded that it was wall to wall people, shoulder to shoulder. You couldn't even move through Fremont Street. It was so busy. So we got the heck out of there. I was thinking to myself, like, it's so crowded here. Like, it's like during COVID, it's uncomfortable kind of to be around that many people so close together. Even if there was no COVID, I would have thought that it was too crowded. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, it was just, it was way too crowded.
I have a video that might help you give a visual to our viewers who may be wondering, boom. And so let's see if we can, Fremont Street Experience walking tour. Let's see if we can speed up since it's 20 minutes long. This is June 15th, 2020. Keep it in mind, folks. Just
I wish it had looked like that on September 25th.
Wow. 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 So it was like not even this many people.
No. It was packed. You couldn't even move. You couldn't do what this walking. You couldn't have done this because there was too many people.
Wow. Let's see. By the way, that's in glorious 4K. Let's see, folks, if there's one that is perhaps a little bit. That's June 12th, March 13th. Let's see something that might be in September. September, like that, and perhaps we can. Guess what? There we are.
Let's see.
Okay, it says nice. It says night scenes. This is September 10th, 2020. September 10th is what?
Was that a weekday or a weekend?
I will let you know in 1 second. September 10th, 2020 is that was the 25th day of the doesn't tell you exactly what day of the week. What day? That was funny. I think it would actually spell out the day, right? Hold on a second. A little bit embarrassing. It was a Tuesday. It was a Thursday. Thursday.
Okay,
Thursday. This is a Thursday.
Definitely let's go. I actually I should have taken a video, but I just want to get out there.
Look at this one. See, then people are stopping to look at some performance, but there aren't many of them.
Yeah, there's not many. And the other thing though is that there's big signs everywhere that masks are required on Fremont Street or the Fremont Street. Nobody was wearing a mask.
No, you can see it's like they are, and the performers aren't wearing them either. That's a performance thing. Push-ups and all that, and people that walk by, and then you can go down here and you can see that. Well, they're not. Look, see, freeze frame, no mask. Well, actually, she's got a mask, but wait a minute. It looks like, yeah, she's got a mask, but he kind of doesn't.
He doesn't.
That's weird. Yeah, right. So you're right. A lot of they've got masks pulled down from their faces.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that was the other thing, is that the people that I did see wearing masks in Vegas, most of them were wearing them like under their mouth. I guess they're protecting their throats. I don't know.
Is it part of is that a byproduct of a smoking environment? Did you see a lot of smoking even still?
There was, yeah. So like they would make announcements in the casinos and say things like, "Remember, you have to have your mask on unless you're smoking, eating, or drinking. Then you can have it off." You know. The other thing that was a little that was kind of, here, let me see. I don't know if I can share my screen. Let me see.
Or if you send the link to whatever you want to share to me, I can. Oh, you got it. Cool.
Can you see it? Oh, there. So yeah. This picture right here. Mm-hmm. I took this picture from my hotel room in Treasure Island. This is looking out on the Las Vegas Strip. This is on Thursday afternoon at 4:30.
God, it looks like a ghost town, man.
There is no car. There are no cars at all.
Wild. Look at that.
Like, normally this would be full of traffic.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was no cars at all. It was
wild, man. That's shocking.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Hey, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, what were you gonna say? Sorry.
I was going to ask. Actually, there have been reports of additional violence.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to address that. So, we were there. Our first night of being there was the night that there was a shooting at Aria. I don't know what the end result of that was, but there was also we were also there, and we were kind of in the area. There was a large fight in the promenade between the Flamingo and the Link, where where the high roller is, where they built like those restaurants and stuff. That was also very crowded on the weekend, and there was nobody there.
Thank you, Mr. Compton. Must appreciate it, Mr. Compton's investment there. Thank you. And David, meet Bryan. Bryan, meet David.
Hey, David. How's it going?
Thank you very much. Yeah, you were saying.
I just there was a large fight there, and I think there was either a shooting or a stab. And the suspect ended up getting apprehended like in Victorville by the California Highway Patrol, and they put out like a alert or something. But there's one there was a big issue, and it's a hot button topic I think right now in Las Vegas, with these electric scooters that you know, like you see at Disneyland, like for like maybe the elderly or people who can't walk as well or get around in the scooters. Well, there's these companies now in Vegas that are renting these scooters, and there's just hundreds of people on these scooters, and they're flying around, running into people who are walking on the streets and telling people to get out of the way and knocking them off the curbs. I mean, I witnessed it. Like, you know, people, and they're screaming at people to move. And they're people who it would appear to be people who, you know, would have no problem outside of the scooter. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? So it was a lot of very young people, just, you know, drinking, drunk, and just flying around on their scooters everywhere. And I know that it's a hot button issue in Vegas. They were talking about a lot on the news actually while we were there, and I think that there's some sort of a effort that's being put out right now so they can ban the scooters.
There you go.
Yep, there it is. Yeah.
That's in casino.org. Las Vegas Strip threatened by misuse of the mobility scooters that you're talking about. This is Ed Silverstein, who claims his expertise is crime, legal, and tribal gaming. And yeah, there you go. Yeah, these are the kind of devices that we see at Kroger to move around and shop in. I've used them because I have some arthritis. So yeah.
Right. These were like college age kids, right? Around
they don't have arthritis.
They don't have arthritis. Yeah. Like, and it was everywhere. They were everywhere. Like, and the other thing was is that we saw several of them who, like, the Las Vegas police were stopping people because they were riding these scooters down the middle of the road on like Las Vegas Boulevard, like holding up traffic. And we saw people going all the way down to like Fremont Street from the Strip, like riding in the street on these scooters. Crazy. Yeah. And then we saw the Las Vegas outlet mall south, which is like south of Mandalay Bay, a couple of miles. There was people riding in the road going to the outlet malls from Mandalay Bay.
What?
And they were racing. Yeah, Ralph just like I said, they were racing. They were racing in the middle of the road. In the middle of the road. So
it says some scooter users intoxicated, lazy, changing Vegas clientele. True?
Yes. So one thing that was the next thing I was gonna talk about is that, you know, Las Vegas, because they've been hurting so bad, right? There's been a lot of price changes in Vegas, and you'll see it in the numbers that I'll show you also. And so they've lowered a lot of the rates at a lot of the hotels. The Wynn actually just reversed course because they had a major brawl that broke out inside of the Wynn Hotel, and security almost couldn't even stop it. It was so large. What? And yeah, it's all over all over YouTube, all over this huge brawl that happened at the Wynn. And it seems to be that because they all lowered their prices, and so it looks to me like what's happened is that you're getting a much younger crowd who might not necessarily be able to afford staying at the Wynn and the Venetian and the Palazzo and those hotels, and so they're staying there and just causing trouble, you know. So it definitely appeared to be like a younger demographic. The vibe was definitely different. While everything was open, there was definitely a different vibe. It seemed to be younger, a little more rowdy, even more rowdy than
I found it. Yeah.
So, yeah.
This is from a news report, so there's no copyright claim here. They filed a lawsuit there.
The Wynn filed a lawsuit against the participant.
I don't blame them.
Yeah.
I don't blame them. This goes into here's they have clips, and that's the attorney. Let's see if we can hear her. For some particular reason, the volume on this particular one is not coming up. But at any rate, there's what happened was there it is. You could just
you just saw
Up there. Let me try that again, folks. That right here. Okay, look at that. My God. My God. They're just kicking in everything else.
Yeah. A
That's,
couple of people, like, it was like at least one person who ended up like unconscious on the floor in there, and like it was ugly. That there's a lot of videos of it. You know.
see, what concerns me about that is, and I watched and I think about my mom, who's now turned 86 as of yesterday.
Yeah,
And, we were walking. This was 2017. I took her to Vegas for CES,
I
and
remember the video. Weren't you guys sitting out on in Paris on the
yeah, absolutely, yeah. And great memory, man. Now I gotta find that. Now, dog on it. And Rex, one of my Hotel Rex is one of my favorite places to eat in Las Vegas. And I don't know if they still have the breakfast going or not, but oh, it was so fun to be at. And I took mom to eat, and that's what Ralph is referring to. But we were walking from, we were staying at Bally's, and we were walking from it's not Rex, it's Hex. I'm sorry.
HEXX.
Thank you. HEXX. Yeah, HEXX. Hex. Yeah, Hex.
That is a great place to eat. And like, not to give them a commercial plug or anything, but that's a great place to eat because they have that patio. You can see the fountains at the Bellagio right across the street. They have a hamburger there at nighttime. They have a hamburger that it's a burger and it's served on a white chocolate bun.
Yum. No, totally yum. Yum. And what I was, my mom and I were walking from Bally's to from Harrah's to Bally's. We wound up, and I have to tell you, for the first time, I felt like, and mom thought I was crazy, but I felt like I had to shield my mom from people who were not minding their place on the street, on the sidewalk, and they were literally trying to walk between us or hoping that we would move out of the way. And I really, that's the first time I felt like it wasn't a place I wanted to be at. I just thought, I thought it was just not cool. This is the we're talking about breakfast and everything else at Hex. This is one of the reasons to go there. And here's the I couldn't find the clip of my mom. I have to find that one, but excuse me, that's not the right one. But it is a great outdoor place in Paris, Las Vegas, that has, among other things, this fantastic. I love eggs Benedict, so I just had to pull the plug for it right there, and but I just didn't feel safe, and now I'm thinking, is this a place where I can take my mom now? Or should I just leave her at home? Because I'm now scared. I'm thinking I don't want to, because mom insists on walking down the street rather than taking, a car.
Yeah.
And I insist, that's the background, folks. And I insist on doing that. So what do you think? Is that a place where I can, what I'm saying, let me tell you what I'm doing.
Hex at Paris. You can see out the side there, right? See that? So there you go. Yes, please. So take a look. Ta-da.
Now I'm hungry.
Yeah, that was March. I was there for the rugby tournament. That was 2018 when rugby had their the rugby sevens were there, and I was there to cover the rugby sevens.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was. David Cobman says it just goes to show you the lack of respect from the other younger crowd. Lack of respect. Yeah, absolutely. So, is it safe to go? And how do you think it's going to be when the Raiders play this Sunday against the Bills at Allegiant Stadium?
So I will say that I'm in like a little group that is like a little Facebook group that like talks about Vegas and stuff, and I made a post about kind of my experiences there. People ask me because they've heard about the recent ethnic violence. Now I'll say that me and Ralph's cousin and our friend who we were with, I never felt unsafe
Oh, good.
ever. Like I never felt unsafe, but I'm 6'5", 300 pounds, right? Like so, but I also never felt like it was unsafe around me.
Your own size.
I felt that some of the trouble that we did see was just trouble amongst other trouble. It didn't seem that they were bothering other people, but it was just causing problems amongst themselves. So I didn't ever feel unsafe. Now I don't know if that would be different. It was just a different vibe. It was just a different vibe. But I didn't feel unsafe. It just felt a little more rowdy. But I never felt unsafe. So
how about let's take a look at the prices. Are we rebounding, or is it in all of this, or what's happening?
Yep. So we are rebounding. So let me pull up. I don't know if I can make this. I'll put it on my screen here.
Okay. If you drop it in there, I can pull it up, put it up there. If you put it in the field there, or
okay.
Like you did the other one, I think. Sometimes it's a little. Here we go. Okay. Yeah. And voila, here we are.
Okay. I don't know if you can. I'll make it bigger.
Yeah, if you go up to, I don't know what kind of computer you have, but if you go up to, yeah, there we go. There we go.
Come on, I'm an Excel wizard. Come on.
Woohoo! Right.
All right. So I have more. Last time
I know these people. Stephen Hill.
Last time I shared, I believe I think we looked at March if I remember right, but I only shared the data from that month. I have a little bit more data, and it gets really alarming, but then it gets better. So you can see here that these are the number of visitors that they're recording coming into Las Vegas. In January, February, March. So January, they had 3,545,000. And a big contributor to that number, obviously, is convention attendance, which was 717,100. January, of course, is CES, the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas. So it's one of the biggest conventions in Vegas every year is CES. February, yes. And so then February, they had 3,333,000 visitors, 760,000 in convention. February, I believe, is a
convention. Is that the adult convention? Is that because they used to be side by side, and then they got broken up or something, right?
Yeah, it's the AVN convention or whatever, the Adult Video Network convention. And there's also another event that happens in February, and it's called the World of Concrete, and that's at Mandalay Bay. And it's a huge event also, World of Concrete. And so you can see like things were going pretty well, like in January. Like here's the number of rooms this is the inventory right here, the 149,000, 148,000, and then occupancy. So for January, Las Vegas ran an occupancy of about 86%. It's pretty good when you're looking at 149,000 rooms. That's a lot of rooms sold. And then February, it ticked up a little bit to about 87%. You have to remember that there's a couple things that drive February besides the conventions and whatnot. One of them is Valentine's Day. Vegas is a big Valentine's Day destination. The other thing about Valentine's Day that people often forget is that Valentine's Day usually falls somewhere around President's Day weekend. So it's a 3-day weekend for people. So they can go to Vegas, they can celebrate Valentine's Day, and they get a 3-day weekend. So February typically is a good month in Vegas because of all the combination of all of that. And then this is all broken down by weekend, midweek. It has the Strip, and it also has downtown or Fremont Street. So weekend occupancy was obviously higher. Like in February, the weekend occupancy was almost 95%, which that's pretty much you're selling out all the rooms basically. And the midweek occupancy was running about 83%. The ADR, which that's the average daily rate. This is the average rate of all of that occupancy. In January is $153.40. February is $132.20. The reason that January is driven up so much more than February is because of consumer electronics. As you know, the prices get real crazy for hotels.
Telling me?
Yeah. So, and you can see that there's a huge disparity between the rate that they're charging on the Strip and what's getting in downtown on Fremont Street. So the Strip at rates were $166 and downtown was $79.
Jeez.
So big disparity. RevPAR, we talked about the math last time. I'm not going to really.
Question regarding that. Do you think that downtown ADR will catch up with a strip at any time in the future with the addition of, say, Circa?
No. I think that well, and the reason for that, I think it's intentional, because I think that the Fremont Street, they want to be perceived as the value, and to try to drive gaming traffic to their hotel. They want to be perceived. They want to be perceived as as a better value, and their whole thing is kind of, we're old Las Vegas, the way things used to be, where you can still get $3.99 steaks and that kind of stuff. So I think it's intentional that the rates are like that. RevPAR, I'll just go over really briefly. RevPAR this is the amount of revenue they receive per available room. So this is different than the average rate, because this would be, if you take this number, $131.77, and you multiply it by the number of available rooms, that's the total revenue for the month. So that's how you get that. So that's how you RevPAR in the hotel industry is how it's how we compare a smaller hotel to a bigger hotel, because obviously, if you have 100 rooms in your hotel, one hotel has 100 rooms and one hotel has 1,000 rooms, the revenue is going to be way different. You can't really compare the performance, but you can by RevPAR, because it's done by available room in the hotel. So I'm not going to go into all the math, it's boring, but so anyway, there was 3,990,000 occupied room night in Vegas for the month of January. You multiply that by 131.77, that'll tell you the total revenue. And then this number right here, 4,154,165. That's the number of passengers who deplaned at McCarran in January. So they had 4 million people came to the airport, and then highway traffic, and then gaming revenue. So the Strip had $572,125,000 in gaming revenue in the month of January. Downtown had 59 million, and the Boulder Strip, which is like the Boulder Highway, Samstown, some of those up there, was a little over 72 million, a little more local.
Where's Boulder Strip in let's say I know where Caesar's Palace is. Where is the Boulder Strip with respect?
Way east. So it would be northeast. So if you went up Las Vegas Boulevard to downtown, and then kind of made a hard right, and then just followed it all the way down to Boulder Highway, and went across you ended up in the Boulder area. There's a few hotels there. There's Boulder Station, Samstown, a couple of places.
Yeah, that's to be register here,
Samstown, and again, it's more kind of a local place. And then Samstown, the thing about Samstown, that if people who aren't familiar with this, they might be familiar with it. If you ever watch bowling, if you ever watch bowling on television, a lot of times those are filmed at Samstown. That's where the bowling events are. PBA.
Back to the days of Earl Anthony and Wild World of Sports.
Yes, yeah. Earl Anthony has the bowling alley in Dublin.
Oh, is that right? That's right. Wow. Yeah, 3:30 in the afternoon in Chicago.
All right, so that was January, and then February. The visitor volume was down just a little bit, and also the number of hotel rooms that were sold is down just a little bit. But February doesn't have as many days as January, so that's part of the reason for that. I mean, you can see again, like gaming revenue that was way up in February. Was almost 600 million compared to 572 million. And downtown was down a little bit, and Boulder Strip was down a little bit. So things were still hopping in February. And then March, which is the month where and we kind of went over last time.
March, it was really like.
Sorry.
That's okay. Cool. March is when the shit started to hit the fan.
That's when it started, but it still wasn't terrible.
Right.
Like it was bad, but it wasn't. It wasn't terrible. So we had like big declines, but so there was still some volume. There was still conventions. There was still rooms being sold, but it wasn't great. So we ran about 40% occupancy in the month of March. The rates were still okay, like 143.31. And there was still 1,828,400 rooms sold, and 2 million passengers deploying at McCarran in March. You can see gaming revenue had a significant decline in March. If you remember the months prior, close to 600 million, and it was close to 300 million in March. There's a gigantic decline.
Also, deploying passengers was 50% down.
Roughly. Yeah, it was way down. And the thing that's interesting also is that the Strip and downtown experienced huge declines in gaming revenue, but Boulder Strip was basically the same. And the reason that you can attribute to that is that it's local. So they didn't have to fly there, they didn't have to drive there. They just go from home, right?
So they have their sort of internal economy.
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty cool for them.
And then so you can see that in March, that this is when the things started to get real bad. So from the previous year, the amount of visitors to Las Vegas was down about 60% month of March compared to the year. Convention attendance was down 55%. So there was still a few things happening, but not a lot. Occupancy at hotels was down 52%. The rate was actually up. It was up 7%, and that's because in the hotel business, typically rates don't react as quickly as the occupancy does, because they're not ready for it, so they still have the prices set as if everything was fine, and the hotels are slow to react to changing the rates. So they actually had an increase in average daily rate, but everything else is negative. The number of passengers was down, like you said, 53% from the prior year and from the prior month. And highway traffic was down. Gaming revenue was down considerably. Room tax, which this is a big one for the Raiders, that was down 55%. Year over year. Okay, so then we get to April. This is when it gets really bad.
Yeah.
So the volume drops.
That's actually we did our first show of these. Remember?
Yes. Yeah. So the volume month over month dropped from 1,531,000 to 106,000. So over 1 million people less were in Vegas. The room inventory is the same. The occupancy dropped from 40. Remember, we were in like the 80-90%, like January, February, and then we went to 40 in March. It was 1.7% in April. 1.7%. That's nothing. That's like no room sold. So we went almost every room sold and basically no room. The rate dropped to $60.50 from where it was in the mid hundreds, right? It was 140, 150, 160. Dropped down to $60.50. The Strip ADR was $57 and downtown was $41. Revenue per available room was $1 per available room. So that means that
that's wild, man.
Yeah, it's crazy swings. I mean, like the amounts are like changed, right? So the revenue per available room on the Strip was 57 cents, and in downtown it was 70 cents. You don't ever see numbers like that.
No, you know when I look at that, I think of hotels being placed in a position where you have to dip into your reserves to pay for your power and everything else because you don't have any money coming in.
Yeah.
And I think about that with respect to the Raiders Stadium now, and I'm thinking, well, who pays the light bill?
Yeah.
Because they don't have any events other than the NFL, unless the NFL's paying the light bill. But you see what I'm getting at.
Yeah. So total room nights occupied for the month of April was 75,300. And so if you multiply 75,300 by $1.03, that's your revenue. That's not very much money when you're talking in the previous month, millions and millions.
Folks, that's for the whole Strip.
Yeah, this is for the whole. Well, this is for everything. the Strip,
So
it's not broken down that way, but yeah, this is for everything. Strip, downtown, everything. 75,300. So, and then
it's
total.
it's fair to say if we threw up a map of Clark County hotels, right?
Yeah.
That's, Clark County hotels map. That would, because I want people to understand
It's
what you're talking about here. And I think I found it here real quick. I don't want to remove that one. So I think what I can do is
I can stop the share.
Actually, you've got control of that one. Actually, this will work. Watch this, because I can do this without really. Yeah, here we go. All right. And then once I get rid of this one, see there. See, the beauty of this is that when I take this down, yours comes back. So you don't have to do anything, right? But folks, this is what he's talking about. This is on a normal day. This is the map. The hotels. This is a vast area. 502 hotels together, basically producing what he is showing here. Add to stream this number. That is, you want to talk about a standstill, an economic standstill? That is the picture of an economic standstill due to a pandemic.
This is no revenue. It's a tiny bit of revenue, but it doesn't even come close to covering any of the costs of.
Yeah. That's like, you can't even call it chump change. I don't know what you call it.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
So April. So
my Lord.
The other shocking number is the air traffic. So in April, there was only 152,000 passengers who deplaned at McCarran. The month prior, there was 2,064,000. So, that's what, a 95% decrease in the arrivals to Las Vegas. Traffic changed, not changed that much, but then you look at gaming revenue. So gaming revenue in the month of March was $546,491,000. In April, it was $3 million. $3 million. And you have to remember also that this is a lot of this.
Tank Batman, since you're wearing a Batman insignia shirt.
Yeah.
Holy tank Batman. Wow.
Yeah, and a big part of this is that they were basically closed. Like, these hotels aren't even really open. They're just closed. And then the changes from previous year, visitor volume was down 97%. Convention attendance 100% because everything got getting canceled. Available room inventory was the same as it was last year. Occupancy for the hotels was down 89%. The rate was down 54%. Revenue, this is pure revenue, basically, was down 99.1% in the month of April.
Rounds to 100.
Yeah, rounds to 100. Yeah, 100%.
Think about it. Rounds to 100. It's
Total room nights occupied was down 98% for last year.
Look at gaming revenue for Boulder Strip. It is at 100.
Yeah.
How can you get to 100.1? That's it.
I think what happened is that there must have been a hotel that was open maybe for one day, and someone must have hit a big jackpot. And so they were in the negative. So they were in the negative for loss. So yeah, but gaming revenue for the county was down 99.5%. Again, you round that, it's 100%. So 100% down. And room tax was down 96.3% in the month of April.
Jeez.
May doesn't get any better. Pretty similar numbers. May, the occupancy went up 1%. These numbers are so small that it's just minimal stuff. So there's hardly anything here. The rates were about the same in May. The revenue was about the same. Gaming revenue came up just a little tiny bit. There must have a couple of hotels that opened or something. They're casinos, but still, it's tiny amount compared to other months.
But I see a glimmer of hope in the next column.
Yeah, correct. So June. So June, Vegas reopened in June, with most of the hotels reopening. So in June, you see the visitor volume jumps back jumps up from 151,000 up to 1 million. So that closer to the numbers that we had in March, but again, nowhere close to where we were in January or February. Still, available room inventory takes a big dip. That's because of closures. So it does skew the numbers a little bit because instead of having 148,000 rooms, you're only looking at 95,000 rooms. So the occupancy, but it still tells a much better story. So occupancy for June was up to 41%, so big increase over April and May. The rates came back a little bit, close, $100. Still nowhere near where a typical June in Vegas, the rates would be a lot higher than 100. That's in the middle of summer.
I'm curious, would these numbers have been lower had there been a larger room inventory?
Yes, yeah. Occupancy would have been lower, and rate, I don't know. Rate would probably have been about the same because the hotels tend to react off of each other. So the hotels that were open, the hotels that were closed probably would have been priced similar to the hotels that were open. So the rate probably would have been similar, but the occupancy would have been less because it's another 60,000 rooms or whatever. So and then revenue per available room obviously jumped way back up. A total room nights occupied jumps way back up. Gaming revenue went from $5 million to $441 million. So they had big spikes there. The year-over-year numbers are still kind of bad. I mean, volume is down 71%. There's still no conventions. I mean, this is still accurate as of today because there's no conventions in Vegas. And as we and we kind of talked about it last time, the Consumer Electronics Show is already canceled. We're already seeing a lot of things move. Also, the other thing is that this year, one of the biggest conventions in San Francisco has typically been Oracle World, and that one in Dreamforce, San Francisco, are the two biggest conventions that drive revenue to the Bay Area for hotels. Well, Oracle World. Last year, at the conclusion of Oracle World, they made the announcement that they were moving to Las Vegas, and so Oracle World is no longer held in San Francisco. It's in Vegas, and it should have been this month, in October. So that all got canceled too. So those are going to be their first year in Vegas. But
Oracle World would normally bring how many? Because I remember that there was a big to-do about their leaving San Francisco for reasons associated with conditions and all that. But how many people were we talking about that would have added in a normal situation more visitors to Las Vegas?
Well, in San Francisco, Oracle World it was about 250,000 attendees.
Wow.
So it was Oracle World would sell out. So as a comparison in the Bay Area, but you can't compare it too much because the hotel situation is different. But as a comparison in the Bay Area, hotels would sell out from San Francisco all the way to Stockton to the east, and all the way to Fairfield to the north, and San Jose to the south. So, or even like Gilroy, if people would say all the way down to Gilroy. So it would have been a huge driver of business. Vegas absorbs that stuff a little bit better because they have so many more hotel rooms. But so it wouldn't cause quite the same amount of compression that it causes in the Bay Area. It's still it'd still be a high demand area for Vegas.
Wow.
It was crazy too. Driving by the convention center and just and the other thing is that not to get too far off track, but the monorail recently filed for bankruptcy, and it's not even.
That really did happen. Okay, interesting.
And it's not even running. It wasn't even running at all.
Wow, you mean it just shut down entirely?
It was completely shut down when we were there.
You know what's sad about that is the SNTIC, the original proposal for it had a call for a bailout. They were supposed to get bailed out by the SNTIC. The SNTIC is the Southern Nevada Tourism and Infrastructure Committee under Nevada Governor Bryan Sandoval. And they did nothing there seemed to be a hostility to actually fulfilling what was their request. And in fact, I will share with you all what I'm talking about as far as that request here, if my computer lets me do so, and it is here momentarily, just to underscore what you are talking about, although it won't come up. For some particular reason, my computer decides it wants to do two dual screen things, so I won't show it, and I'll just leave it there here and let that go away, and I'll just read it because it is worth knowing about. It says in September 2000, financing closed on $650 million to acquire the original MGM Valley's monorail and construct 3 additional miles to form what is today the Las Vegas monorail system. In 2004, July, the Las Vegas monorail opened for revenue, and after a 3-month interruption in service, has consistently operated above 99% availability, which is a calculation used to determine the quality of service. The company has endured many ups and downs in its brief existence: early mechanical interruptions, overly aggressive ridership projections and expectations, the Great Recession, and a Chapter 11 reorganization. This was not obviously the current one. Yet through all of this, it has endured to become a financially sound, significant, and unique transportation infrastructure serving the resort corridor. It is unique in that it is the only transit-grade rail or bus system in the United States to turn an annual operating profit from its fare revenue, and it's carried 70 million passengers. So at any rate, as I go through here, the request was, as a nonprofit company, they said that they met IRS requirements to issue tax-exempt bonds subject to certain tax rules. And they were requesting support recommendation of the SNTIC that the governor of Nevada, subject to making the findings, and if all other legal requirements are satisfied by the company, approve and sign the attached certificate, which basically reads as follows. They had left it open-ended into what they were supposed to get, like the issuance of the bonds in an amount not to exceed amount, but they didn't put it in like 200 million, for example. What happened, folks, was they basically let them hang. And I think it's very sad, but that's what they did. And so what you're explaining to me now is like the once great promise of the Fontainebleau, which sits empty. We had the monorail tracks unused.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's criminal, Bryan. That's like
the monorails were the train cars were actually they were inside of that little like there's like a little housing there in front of the convention center. That's where they were just sitting in there. They weren't being used. So I don't know. I mean,
it's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Huh. It's like there was a lot of disdain for, when I was following the SNTIC, there was a lot of disdain for the idea of funding the monorail. But worse, there was no discussion of how to replace it or to find somebody else, right? It was just, so maybe you can explain, why does it seem like Vegas does indeed leave you a little bit pregnant, as a friend of mine, Tony Wilson, once said, meaning that they'll let you do what you want to do, but if it doesn't work, they won't really help you out.
Yeah.
Why is
I don't know, but you see that all around the town, right? Like the projects that have started and stopped and kind of failed. I don't know what it is that happens that way. I mean, it seems to me like you talk about like convention stuff. Sheldon, he controls a lot of what happens in Vegas. He controls the place of Vegas, right, with the newspaper. So I don't know, and he's always wanted the Sands Convention Center to be the convention center, and so I don't know. Maybe that's something. Who knows? Maybe he's behind some of this. I don't know.
Do you think the Raiders are looking at the same fate, given that we have the pandemic, that they're supposed to realize 49 events, and then get this? The internal rate of return was supposed to be or reach 8.49% over a 30-year period, but that was assuming 49 events annually. Now, as you know, there are no events.
There's 0 events. 0.
Right. Other than football. That's it.
The other thing that I worry about as far as the Raiders Stadium goes is they're naming sponsors Allegiant Airlines. The airline business is not doing very well right now. So I don't know how that's going to work out either.
No, and I'm glad you brought that up, because there was a sign at Allegiant Stadium right to the left of the Raider image that they took it down just as it seemed, just around the time that the latest wave of losses was being announced. They took the sign down. They came in overnight. They took the sound down. And they never put it back. And I thought, well, it wasn't broken.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if maybe they took it down for power reasons or something. Whatever it was, they took it down. And then also the video board, digital video board, that's not ready. They were testing it, but they never activated it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a lot going on that's not, and that's what I'm trying to get the bottom of it, but they're not telling the real story. I mean, all I know is that the stadium isn't really officially going to be finished until November 31st.
Mm-hmm.
And it just feels like, once again, one of these situations that could lead to the monorail or could lead to, so on. Anyway, go ahead. Please continue.
No, that's right.
Hey,
yeah.
Welcome everybody. Welcome to 62. Yeah, watching. So yeah. I know these things. The executive summary.
Yeah, the executive summary. It's basically the same numbers, just prettied up with some graphs and stuff. But this is just for the month of August, so things definitely are getting better. And then September was even better. The official numbers won't come out from the company that provides all these numbers is a company called STAR, which is Smith Travel Research. They're the hotel industry company that provides data to us and the industry. And they don't release the numbers get released around the 20th, between the 20th and 22nd of every month. So in about 20 days, we'll have September's numbers. But September definitely looked a lot better. So August, you can see that the month-over-month change from July for visitors was up about 7% in the month of August. So that's good. Convention attendance, again, there's none. Occupancy was about the same, about 42%. And you can see that the weekend occupancy is really what's driving. So
yeah, cool.
In the month of July, the weekend occupancy was 54.4%, and in August it was 63.1%. So it's really a lot of the drive traffic from Los Angeles is driving the, and weekday occupancy stayed about the same in the mid 30% range. Actually down just a little bit. Strip occupancy was up a little. Downtown went down a little. This is just month over month, July to August. The rates went down a little bit, but July you have a holiday, so 4th of July the rates usually go a bit higher, and so August the hotels started really dropping prices to try to encourage people to continue to come to Vegas. This also could be part of the reason that hotels started to kind of get maybe some of the customers that were a little less desirable. The people are starting to fight things in the hotels. I don't know if I said it earlier when we were talking about the fight at the Wynn, but the Wynn actually reversed course, and they've decided they're going to go back to normal pricing to try to eliminate the problems.
Good. Yeah, because I was thinking, God, it'd be great to go there, but then, it's a shame to see that lower prices quite literally attract an element of people that don't value where they're at.
Yeah, exactly.
That's wild to me. I don't know how we got to that place in society where people are not grateful. I have a friend who actually is a vlogger, Vasu Vadapati, who went to Vegas. His room at the Excalibur, he actually also works for Fox. He was sort of passing through, was $25 a night.
Yeah.
You know, it's like,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. Well, like for example, for us, so at the it's downtown, obviously, but the downtown Grand, like we were paying like it was like $35 a night. Say that.
Wow.
And the rates are crazy low. Not crazy.
$35. Wow, $35 a night. That's like,
yeah.
I
That's
mean,
like cheaper than employee rates for us at like a kind of Wyndham. Revenue was down a little bit in August, but it was about the same number of occupied rooms. It was up just a little bit. Number of air seaplane passengers rose month over month, and then gaming revenue. Gaming revenue was down 3.1%, but August has 3 days, so 31, missing 1 day gaming revenue month over month, and you also have the holiday, the July 4th holiday in July. So anyway, and then year-over-year change, August 2019 compared to 2019, occupancy was down 16.2%. Rates were down 12%. Revenue was down 16%. Total room nights occupied were down 33%. Gaming revenue was down 10%. But as you can see, it's definitely better than what we saw in the previous month. So, while these numbers are bad, it's kind of like, hey, in August you sucked less.
it will achieve normalcy in terms of numbers.
When will we achieve normalcy?
Yeah, like I mean, like, or maybe even better. Is that what, 2 years off, 3 years off?
No, I don't think. I don't think it's as far off as you think it is. It's probably closer. Now, the one thing is that, like, when we look at when we go into next year and when we look at the number and we start looking at the numbers, the problem where it gets muddy is when we look at March, April, and May. We don't have a comparison. We're gonna have to compare when we pull the numbers for March, April, and May of 2021. We have to compare those to March, April, and May of 2019, not 2020, because it's not comparing apples.
Right.
I think that as far as room rates go, you're looking at probably 2022 before you get back to the rates that we had in 2019. But as far as occupancy and visitors go, I think we'll probably start getting back there in March, April. I think a lot of this is going to depend on if there's a vaccine, how things are progressing with the virus, if people are less afraid, or how that all plays out. But if those things are get under control sooner rather than later, I think probably March to April of 2021, you'll start seeing occupancy rebound, and then rates will probably come back fully in 2020. That would be my estimation. Rates always, in the same way that rates trail, the rates go down slower, the rates also go up a lot slower. So once you start getting a lot of people booking at a certain rate, and then you change it, and those people quit booking, hotels have trepidation to move rates quickly because they lose the occupancy. At this point, with the way that things have been going, at this point, hotels are they just want the rooms. They just want the rooms occupied. So the rate is secondary at this point.
Wow. It's like, hey, I'm going to get your opinion on. Well, go ahead. I don't want to take away from your presentation, so keep going.
No, that was always going to show. Yeah.
I wanted to get your take.
Oh, by the way, I'll forward you those documents.
Oh, cool. Okay. I want to get your take on if I can transfer this over. Let's see here. I can go here. And StreamYard will cooperate. Share screen. I'm going to have to. You stay there. I'm going to have to go back and come back in and resync, which only take a second. So nothing will happen to the broadcast. Just bear with me as I refresh. Okay. If it'll allow me to even do that. There I am. Okay, I'm back here.
All right.
It didn't take long. Now there it is. Okay, now I got it. It won't give me what I want there. That's that. Okay, I'm looking. Okay, basically, I'm just going to talk it out. It's a new plan by Wynn Resorts CEO that offers a vision to accelerate the return of events and entertainment to Las Vegas. And he put in an op-ed in the Nevada Independent, and he basically says there's this multi-layered approach that he's taking. And he says, I'll read it to everybody. He says, as a longstanding member of the Las Vegas community and the current CEO of Wynn Resorts, I have been deeply entrenched in the economy and culture of Las Vegas. And this man, by the way, is Matt Maddox. His name is CEO. And he says, for almost 2 decades, this is not only a place I love and call home, this is a place that I understand. Without any doubt, Las Vegas is the most distinguished destination for uncompromising fun and unique experiences that cannot be found anywhere else in the world. That is why we are famous across continents and why we can depend on throngs of visitors from every walk of life to arrive ready to be entertained. We must remind ourselves that our guests don't just travel to Las Vegas for small events or our casinos and fantastic restaurants, but also for our confluence of musicians, artists, acrobats, nightclubs, pool parties, the Golden Knights, the Raiders, NASCAR race weekends, and the multitude of festivals. Without argument, Las Vegas is unrivaled in our ability to bring people together with razzmatazz that exists only here and with a spirited level of service only offered by the hardworking Las Vegas hospitality community. What Las Vegas does better than anywhere else in the world is provide a fun escape. Now, more than ever, people need to unwind and switch off from the stresses and strains of daily life. It is clear that corporate travel and conventions will slowly ramp up over the next few months and into 2021. However, we're seeing some signs of leisure travel increasing, and I believe that Las Vegas should be the go-to destination to have fun and unwind during this stressful time. Yet right now, many of the city's unique and fun experiences are not operating at all because they are mass gatherings. Our elected officials are rightly focused on keeping people safe, and I'm happy to see the progress moving the mass gathering limit to 250, but hoping our government alone will also solve getting Las Vegas back on track. But hoping our government alone will also solve getting Las Vegas back on track is not viable. Hope, as the saying goes, is not a strategy. Instead, community leaders must present science-based options that advance our broader goals to reignite our city. Wynn was one of the first to produce a detailed reopening plan in April that is now the foundation for similar plans across many industries, not just hospitality. We opened with a top-notch health and safety set of protocols, stringent employee testing, a dedicated contact tracing team, and rigorous sanitation plans. Our advisory group of leading external health experts all agree that Wynn is likely one of the safest places our employees go in Las Vegas outside of their homes on any given day. So, how do we come back? For months, we've been working with University Medical Center, and I will jump ahead because he writes a lot. He basically says that he says, imagine the following. Lionel Richie is playing at the Encore Theater at 7 p.m. Between 12 p.m. and 4 p.m. that day, you and your friends each provide a saliva sample at our on-property testing centers. The barcodes are scanned, and you download the free UMC app and go about your day. All the information is hosted by UMC, and the data is private. When the test results come back at 6 p.m., a negative test result triggers a green light on the app, and you can attend the show. And because the same process will apply, you can also head into a securely populated convention the following morning. If by chance someone is affected after they take the test, science tells us that it takes approximately 48 hours for that person to become communicable. Hello, Mr. Trump. We are not planning or creating a full Wynn bubble by testing everyone in every environment, but instead requiring a test for employees to work or guests to attend a show convention, nightclub, or other crowded space that exceeds the, quote, mass gathering state mandated limits. Clearly, we will need approval from the state to execute this plan. But having worked closely with leading medical experts around the country, I believe that this approach can accelerate Nevada's recovery, and not just for Las Vegas Strip, but also to reopen our schools. What do you think about this? My thought, basically, Bryan, is that the government needs to bail them out.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I don't know what happened, or why they're afraid to ask the administration, which I think right now would be a good idea to say, hey, Mr. President, remember that promise? While he's, got fewer things to focus on, if you will.
Right.
But he had them all, the leaders of the Las Vegas hospitality industry, except you, should have had you in there, at the White House.
Mm-hmm.
And he made a promise to bail out the Las Vegas hospitality industry.
Yeah.
And with the exception of the payroll protection program, which is a mere pittance of what is needed, let's come up with goose egg.
Yeah.
Why are they so afraid to ask for help?
I think that they're afraid to admit failure, or to admit that something should. They think they know how to do everything, and that we know how to do this. And it almost seems like it's kind of an ego thing, right?
Yeah,
we're Las Vegas.
Yeah.
We are Las Vegas. We know how to run hotels. We know how to run casinos.
Yeah.
Right? And so
we know how to build a stadium. We can do it. We can do it safely and cheaply.
That's right. Yeah. Look at all the construction going on. We know how to do everything here in Las Vegas. We don't need your stinking help, right? I mean, does it feel that way to you? That's the way it feels to me. Is that Vegas has this very kind of standoffish attitude that outsiders are not allowed because we know what we're doing.
Right. Yes. Yeah. And when you call them on it, they get really mad at you.
Right. Yeah.
It's not call them on it. Like in my personal case, I'll provide a solution. You would think they would say thanks.
Yeah.
It only angers them more, and it's kind of like, well, hey, it's
even if I didn't mean to interrupt you, but even if they're just blowing smoke, right? Like, I mean, if they're never going to look at what you're proposing, or never going to look at your solution, at least, hey, thanks for providing that. We'll take a look at it, or but just.
In that vein, I'll say, in fairness, I will say that Guy Hobbs of Hobbs-Ong did not act like that. He actually he was the person that structured the bond issue deal that created the subsidy. The county finance manager, Jessica Coleman, director, actually gave me a private conference call with her people and with Guy. Because the reason for all this, folks, is because I loudly contended that their hotel tax rate was too small. And I said that they're going to run into trouble, and the proof's in the pudding, because they had the problems that started before the pandemic. Okay, this wasn't related to the pandemic. I kept saying, and I still contend, that if the hotel tax rate the stadium tax rate at 1.4%, they would have had extra money to weather the storm through this from the bond issue. I don't know how it would affect you guys' rates. How would it have affected your rates?
It wouldn't have. That wouldn't have been a big. That would have been a small amount. It wouldn't have affected, like, per guest. It's a very small number, but in totality, it's a big number.
Yeah, and see that I'm glad you mentioned that, because one of the linchpin presentations during the Southern Nevada Tourism Infrastructure Committee was this elasticity of demand. What they thought was the elasticity of demand comparison. I say what they thought because it wasn't rigorous to my standards. They're basically trying to show how they believed this, even a 1% increase, would cause their room rates to go up to be less competitive than Chicago. And I looked at the chart comparison. I thought that they were actually throwing, I call them line darts. In other words, the darts on a predetermined line that leads to a mark. So it's going to go, and it's all fixed. But in point of fact, it was higher than in reality where it was going to be.
Okay, you're talking about. I mean, think about it in simple terms, right? So for every $100, you're only talking about $1.
Yeah.
Or $1.40. So it's not very much. And this is and you're talking about a city that adds $50 resort fees on top of everybody's reservation for their room rate. So what's $1? $1 is nothing, right? That's $1.40. So 1.4% would be $1.40 on 100. On a $200 room rate, you're talking about $2.80. It's such a small portion of the total. It's nothing.
Right. But you know what? To their defense, I think the only concern that they had was when they didn't publicly voice, but they had to figure it out through, watching their actions.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe it was this. I believe that they felt that since they had to go to the Las Vegas the Nevada legislature
mm-hmm.
to vote on it, I think that they believe that at anything higher than 1% or at 1%, they were going to lose, because the question would be, how are you going to do this for the Raiders? And yet if you can do this for the Raiders, then you can do this for schools, right?
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to, hey, if you increase it and you take a little sliver of it, right, and then give that to the schools, then you basically have sort of bought your political, buy-in. And they didn't think of it that way.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that's the reason, because they started out at 1%. And then I remember the Raiders, Mark Davis says, look, we're not going to go less than $750 million for the subsidy. All right.
Mm-hmm.
That was in March of 2016. Then in April, they came up with this alternative, which was only $550 million. And Mark Bedane blew a gasket at the meeting and said, no, we're going to walk. And so they all started rejiggering their calculations and said, okay, we can do it this way. Right. And what they did in recalculating everything, they figured out, they said, look, we'll do a pay-go. In other words, we'll collect hotel taxes for the first 2 years before we float the bond issue. So the bond issue is really a 28-year bond. It's a 30-year bond issue, but it has a 32-year collection period, now 33-year, because actually added an extra year. All right. And so that's what they did. They said, well, we'll collect this. And the reason they did it that way is because rather than having a bond issue that really was $750 million, they wound up with one that was $650 million. So basically they collected, well, they're really supposed to collect almost $200 million, but they wound up collecting $140 million because the tax rate was too low.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, the Raiders started lopping off Khalil Mack and Amari Cooper.
Yeah.
Because they realized that since they were Stadco and all that money had to come out of their pockets, they had to make up that difference because that money was going to the Raiders for construction. Right? And they were short. So they looked at it and they went, ah! Having not been, because for the first time in the Raiders' lives, their stadium finances were directly tied to, by decree of agreement, the football finances. Stadco was the Raiders, and Dan Ventrelli, the Raiders attorney, his signature was all over those documents, which I have to this day. Okay. Mm-hmm. So then when they got the money, it was $647 million. That's the subsidy. All right. And so they had no cushion, and they said, oh, we'll get through on what was supposed to be a $90.5 million debt coverage amount,
mm-hmm.
but they only raised 60% of it. It was undercapitalized. So it's like,
yeah.
It was like, I kept pointing out, like, but the point is, I'm saying, hey, look, if you're honest with your problems, people will come to help you.
Yeah.
Because they want to see you succeed. But when you tell people it doesn't work, and they know, and they're staring in their faces that you got a problem, and they're saying, hey, here's some cake, this will help you, right?
Yeah.
You're not taking the cake. People like me are like, oh, heck with you, man.
Yeah.
They help you, right? I love Las Vegas. We're like, oh, you hate Las Vegas. No, I don't.
Yeah.
At all. I mean, I started coming to CES before all this mess started. I was trying to find a girlfriend. I thought I was going to get married to this girl in Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't happen.
No.
No, it was anyway. Had fun though. But anyway,
you could have got married by Elvis in a drive-thru.
Well, actually, we had talked about that. She got back to the Midwest, and her basically race. It had to do with skin color.
Yeah.
It was one of those things that she only do in Vegas, and then she got back to some small town in the Midwest.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that was that. So you live and learn. But but my point is that and I say that because my mom is that's another problem. But the whole point is is all kidding aside. But I wasn't kidding about that, folks. It's a true story. But it really is sad to me to see the culture of Las Vegas, in particular in South Valley, create these problems for itself that are solvable. And I don't know if this leads to. I mean, I pray that it gets better because I want to be able to go back and enjoy the place and stay at the Wyndham this time.
You know a guy if you want to stay there.
Yeah, no, yeah, and you take in the Raider game in a way where I'm not getting harassed by some of the people that are at the lower decks that are going to say, "There's Z, let's get him." But I really pray it comes back. I really do. But
I think it will.
Are you guys doing any initiatives? Because I actually called up. Well, I don't know what's going on with I was trying to call up the picture of the Wyndham. Maybe you can call it up and I can post it here. But I don't know how you do it on time. If you want to close out or something, or it's your call, it's your show. But I
got 5 more minutes, and I got it.
Put a picture up of the Wyndham. Let's talk about it. Show them where it is. If you can type it in the search and put it there, I'll click on it and we can show it.
All right, let's see here.
So.
Whoops, I got rid of myself. Okay, there we go.
Don't get rid of yourself.
Don't get rid of myself. It's too early in the day.
And the other thing, as far as that and the Raiders in Oakland, is I have to tell you, I'm really disappointed. Like, for example, Ray Bobbitt has this idea of having an all-African American group to bring back NFL football, and great, except that they don't want me involved, and I brought the Super Bowl to Oakland or tried to. And now I'm the only person in NFL history to do so. But they don't want me involved by their behavior. And then on top of that, they're in the middle of a lawsuit. So you can't do the lawsuit and do that. And it's like Oakland all over again, where we're all trying to be Chiefs and we don't work together. And then somebody wants their group, and they don't want the other group. And meanwhile, people are like, we're waiting for you. And they get tired of waiting, they take off. That's not going to happen with the A's, though.
Yeah, no.
Beautiful.
How about those A's? Let's beat those Astros.
How about those A's? Go A's. Go A's.
Beat those cheaters. Those cheaters from Houston.
Hey, I've stayed here. This is the Tropicana Inn. I stayed here for the not CES, but it's actually another large one, the Broadcasters Convention.
Oh yeah, so we just recently renovated. This hotel is just recently renovated, and the reason I bring this hotel up is we actually just changed our name. We were able to add stadium into our name because we're very close to the stadium.
Yeah.
So,
do you have Raiders special rates or anything or?
We will. We had them loaded for this year, and we were going to do some stuff with some parking and maybe a shuttle that would take you over to the game, because as you saw probably from one of the videos that I shot, the parking lot there's no parking at the stadium. So
it's worse up close to see it finished, to see the dearth of parking.
I know.
Wow.
I remember. A couple of years ago, I went to Vegas. I actually sent a video a couple of years ago when from the construction. I kind of went around the stadium and it seemed like there's gonna be a little bit of parking, but then when you actually go there, now that the stadium is completed, there's literally no parking.
No, and just imagine when we get over this, they finally start getting people to go in there. The strip is gonna be flooded. There's gonna be traffic jams all over the place.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I'll tell you what though, like when you come in on 15 in Vegas, that stadium is, I mean, it is sitting right. I mean, it's right there over that freeway. It's what it catches your attention as soon as you
As heck does, doesn't it? It's
come into town.
you really you can
So
see
anyway, so this is a newly renovated hotel, and definitely take a look sometime if you're if you're planning on going to Vegas. I also would say that, like I said earlier, I never felt unsafe in Vegas. I thought that I was fine. Here was an interesting thing is that I don't know if you know this, but there's actually 2 hotels in Las Vegas right now that have reopened their buffet.
No, I didn't know that. No.
Yeah, so the Cosmopolitan reopened their buffet, the Wicked Spoon, and South Point Hotel and Casino they've reopened their buffet. So there's 2 reopened buffets. The Wynn reopened their buffet and they closed it again. So,
oh wow! Do you know the blog Vital Vegas?
I'm familiar with it. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I don't know what you think of it or not, but they were announcing that a number of buffets are going to close, and then the Sahara decided to sue them for some reason. I don't know if you know about that lawsuit or not, but
I don't know about that lawsuit. The Sahara just got in a lot of trouble. I don't know if they got in a lot of trouble from they just had to pay, I think $50,000 in fines for not enforcing social distancing and the mask policy by the state. There's some problems with the Sahara. I don't know.
I think he had reported that they were going to close, and it was an erroneous report, which he took down. He put it on Twitter, not his blog. To me, a tweet is kind of like, that's Jack Dorsey's site at the end of the day. You've got a problem. Well, that's another long soliloquy I won't go into. But the point I'm making is he took it down, sued him anyway, and I don't know where that lawsuit is. They don't have standing, but it's just wild. And it also goes to the kind of culture we're talking about with Vegas, about they like to give the presentation that they're on it and they know it and they don't want anybody embarrassing them. I for one would not have been so careless as to have done that as a blogger, because in the middle of a pandemic, you don't want to scare people who are already scared out of their wits and don't know where the next money is going to come from. Which gets me to this question: how is the mood in Vegas overall?
So I thought it was fun. Like, people were having a good time. The casinos were busy on the weekend. The casinos were busy. The tables were all full. People were enjoying themselves. The weekend that I was there, which was last weekend, that was the first weekend that the state had reopened bars. So the bars had just reopened. There's still no nightclubs, but the bars were reopened. So people were in the bars and having a drink, and tables were all completely full, and the casinos were full. So I mean, the atmosphere still felt very similar, but when we went outside, the vibe was a little different with some of the fighting and the scooters and stuff. But inside the casinos, I didn't feel much different.
Are the clubs still closed? Because there are a lot of clubs that just simply closed and shut down. I think
they're all closed.
Will they ever come back?
I think so. I think that they'll come back. Sure.
Wow.
I mean, it was a big shift in Vegas, right? From you went from years and years ago, gaming, not family friendly, right? And then they kind of went into their family friendly thing where we're going to build roller coasters and theme parks and have games for kids and bring your kids. And it was actually a great idea, because you're building a whole nother clientele for when they're older. They're going to come back to Vegas, right, to do the gambling. And then they kind of got away from that, and they went into the what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, and that kind of turned into the nightclub, the fancy restaurant, no more $3 buffet, no more $5.99 steak and lobster, that kind of thing. So, and that's kind of where they've kind of gotten, I think, a little bit away from what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, and more of a they were starting to kind of be we're a little more upscale than that. And
there's sports now.
Yeah, now there's sports, and but now that's all kind of changed. But it'll come back. It'll definitely that stuff will come back. I mean, it might be different than it was before. It might have a different name. Someone else might take over. But I think overall, Vegas will come back.
Is sports making a big change in Vegas? I mean, that's demonstrable to be seen, or is it too early to tell?
As far as the environment goes, like when you drive, like when I was driving around, like on the strip and stuff, all the hotels they're into the Raiders, man. Like they've got like Julius Caesar's out in front wearing a Raiders jersey, and the Statue of Liberty's got a Raiders jersey on, and it definitely it feels like in a small way maybe that sports maybe change the image just a little bit of Vegas, where it's now it's not just the place you go to gamble, drink, and smoke, and that it's actually a real town now, or whatever city. Yeah. Not just this destination you go to for a day. So it does kind of feel that way.
And that's what I fear, because I feel like when you say real town, I think of also crime.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a level of crime that to me they're not quite ready for.
Yeah.
That takes away from its innocence, and so it doesn't feel like. Because the one thing that I started to hear people like Tommy White say, who is one of the major union guys, say it doesn't feel like Vegas anymore. A lot of this doesn't feel like Vegas anymore. And I kept saying, so what do you mean? And he explained how it felt like a small town, and so they're getting away from. And I haven't figured out, and I'm not the best to determine if that's a good thing or a bad thing. What do you think?
I think in the overall scheme of things, it'll be good, but it's one of those things where if you're not just a visitor to Las Vegas, but you live in Las Vegas, it probably maybe feels a little overwhelming at the beginning. But it'll all in time, it'll all play out, and I think everything will be back to more normal. But I could definitely see where if you were there and you weren't used to it, it could be, it could be a little overwhelming. I mean, because everything just kind of at once, right? I mean, like the Golden Knights, the Raiders are all very close. I mean, the Golden Knights have only been around for 2 years or whatever. So this is all happening very, very.
It's like boom, boom. Yeah. Hey, I know you got to go.
Yeah.
Great show, my man.
Thank you so much.
Much sooner than 4 months.
Yeah. Let's get it on the calendar.
Hey, thanks everybody. Thanks for coming in. If you haven't done so before, subscribe to Zenny62 and bookmark Oakland News Now. Bryan, stick out around in the background. We'll see you all later, folks, with more live streams. See you later.